Hello, Steve White, Trek Boy 89 for Steve Arts 89. Well, there's been some progress regarding the Khan miniseries, Ceti Alpha 5, which is now a audio series. Originally, Nicholas Meyer was brought onto Star Trek Discovery, mostly for his name, to work on the show, and that didn't go so well, but he did approach Kurtzman about a Khan miniseries. It was a 3-part series, and it was basically going to be Khan's time on Ceti Alpha 5 before he was rescued in Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. There was talk it was going to be a series. There was talk that it was going to be on the CW. There was talk that it was going to be done on CBS, and there was talk that it was going to be... It just was talked about and just didn't happen. And then it sort of came back as a audio drama, which is the poor man's way of getting it done. And it's really sad that Kurtzman can get the money together for things like Starfleet Academy, which no one wants in the 31st century anyway. Maybe in the 23rd, 24th, 25th centuries it might have flown and actually worked. And Section 31 and stuff like that. So he can get the money for those things, but he can't get the money for Ceti Alpha 5, which fans would want to see, or Legacy, which fans are begging for. So it's frustrating. But so basically Nicholas Meyer was at a screening of Star Trek II at the, where was it? The Fine Arts Theatre in Beverly Hills. It's part of a TOS movie marathon, and also included the documentary Love, Spock. Is that the name of this film about Leonard Nimoy that his son did? I hope so. So he was asked, and he basically just said, I'm thinking recording will start within the next year. Their casting. That's all he said. That's it. That's all we got. That's this whole video is just on that one quote. But it is interesting, just pondering the fact that this could be a TV series. We could have had an interesting exploration of, a character from Star Trek, in canon, done accurately, and it could have been really interesting. Instead, we're getting an audio drama, which anyone can do an audio drama. I could do an audio drama. All you have to do is get enough people to do the characters and get some stuff to rattle and make it sound like sound effects. I mean, it's the poor man's way of getting a show done. So the fact that Nicholas Meyer has been reduced to that's all he could get from them, the budget for an audio drama, is just really sad, because it should be getting the miniseries or TV movie. They could have done a long form TV movie or a miniseries, or just a short event series. They could have done something, but no. Now, that being said, Nicholas Meyer's Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan is the worst of the Star Trek films. It started the end of Star Trek by establishing a non-science fiction, goodies versus baddies, action, shoot 'em up, villain of the week sort of movie, which is what they've tried to do with almost every film since then. Probably Star Trek 4 is the only film that didn't try to do the villain of the week, or villain of the film, I don't know. That's what people think the Star Trek movie is now, just the goodies chasing the baddies around space in a spaceship and shooting them up, and that's what they think Star Trek is. I don't get it. It's a science fiction series. So he did a lot of damage by basically making Starfleet a military, appear as though they're a military organization. Yes, people related to it more, but not people who had the intelligence to actually envision the sort of world that Star Trek was based in and set in, and that fans enjoyed living in and escaping to. Instead, they reduced it to this militaristic, basic goodies versus baddies, shoot the bad guys. Basically, that's basically what Star Trek 2 is to most people. And Star Trek 3 kind of tried to do that with Krug, and Star Trek 5. Actually, Star Trek 5 didn't really try and do that. Now I think about that, we do have a villain. And maybe that was enough for the studio, and they weren't paying attention to see he's actually not a villain. Star Trek 6 had the classic villain. Star Trek 7 had the classic villain. Star Trek 8 had a classic villain. Star Trek 9 had a classic villain. Star Trek Nemesis had a classic villain. Star Trek 2009 had a classic... You get the point. They're all the exact same film, told over and over again, because they're like, oh, that's the Star Trek film format. Villain after revenge, attacks our crew, defends themselves, shoot them up, saves the day, flies away at warp speed, basically. And, put to boldly go at the end, speech at the end of the movie. That's basically what they think Star Trek is. So, yeah. Had to have a bit of a rant, because as much as I don't like Nicholas Meyer, because I hate what he did to Star Trek in Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, it gets so much credit because it sort of, the original Star Trek, the motion picture, struggled because it really pushed for a science fiction film. And then Wrath of Khan sort of brought it back to the normies and the general audience, and that's what the studio liked, even though it made less money than Star Trek the motion picture. They've sort of followed that, that example ever since, and they keep trying for the general audience and getting further and further away from Star Trek and the Star Trek audience and the science fiction format and everything that the show was. So it's just, I blame Nicholas Meyer, but, yeah, I still would like him to get his series done properly on screen, not as an audio drama.